Hi everybody. Well, it's another weekend, Friday afternoon here. Done with work for the week, so I'm out start working on the Allis, my weekend project. What the goal is for this weekend is to get the other final drive, the right hand side, cleaned up. It's a sunshiny day here in North Dakota. It's at least mid-30s I see out there, maybe pushing 40. So I'm going to set up outside and do some wire wheeling and clean up all this final drive while the sun is still shining out there and the weather is somewhat nice. And then if I really do good, I'll hopefully maybe get the differential cleaned up as well, and then we can start fitting that all back together and seeing what the clearances are, trying to decide if there really should be any gaskets in the final drives to set basically your side to side play, your thrust surfaces on your bearings here for your differential, for how loose that is side to side. So once we get to that point, we'll figure out that. But the backtrack, I guess I never followed up on our leather seal from last week. Of course, the leather is dry by now, and if I can get a shot in here, try to get a light and arm in here all at once. Pull the socket out. It's still a nice fit. It is obviously dry and hard. It seems like it should be a pretty good seal there. What I'm going to do now is pull this back out and soak that leather in some light oil to get it, soaked so it'll be, I don't know what the right word is, pliable, I guess. It'll last, won't wear out. So I'm going to get that going, and then, like I said, yeah, we'll focus on cleaning up that final drive. One interesting thing I did find as I was cleaning that I didn't make a note of last week is that on the Babbitt, on the inside of this lip here, oh, there I might have gotten it. I have to edit this video down. Well, there is the Allis part number stamped on there. There we go. It's AM 4320. So anyway, that was a lot of work to get that, but I think that was, zoom back out here now. So on that flange of that Babbitt, there's stamped the Allis part number. And then on the inside of this other again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a shot of that. Oh yeah, maybe. It says something there. What does that say? I don't know what it says, but it says something there. Maybe you guys will know what that means. I'll have to edit this video pretty bad because it's all kinds of zooming and bad focusing, but I thought that was kind of interesting that it had those stamps on there. So speculating, I think that means that those Babbitts would have been made prior, pressed into place, got the locating pins to hold it in place as well, seeing as it wasn't, or I speculate, wasn't actually poured in place. A lot of times Babbitt is poured in place in the casting. But I'm thinking these were not. I'm thinking these were made up ahead of time, put in place, and then probably given the final inside machining after the fact, after they were put in place, I'm guessing. If anybody knows more about that process for old Babbitt bearings and old tractors in general, I'd like to hear some more about that, because you hear about like engines, you know, the connecting rods and main bearings and stuff, the old engines were poured in place and, you know, then machined or whatever, and they're not removable. But you never hear about this type of application as much, where they're, again, I'm speculating, they were poured in a jig or fixture or mold, whatever, outside by possibly even another company. Allis got them, put them in their housings, machined them after, I'm guessing. I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm learning as I go. So if any of you people out there have more knowledge about that, I'd like to hear about it. And then another thing, I've been having a real hard time. Maybe some of you people out there could help. These old lock washers are like obsolete. I don't have a good cleaned up one here. I quit cleaning them up because they were all breaking on me and bad. But these old ones, they are bigger and thicker, and they actually have a raised, what do you call it, a little raised edge. Yeah, if I can get to focus here. On this outside edge. So they're made different than modern lock washers. And the OD is a lot bigger than a modern lock washer. Obviously the inside is the same, because a 1/2-inch bolt is still a 1/2-inch bolt. But back then the heads were a lot bigger. Big heavy hex heads, 7/8 bolt for a 1/2-inch, 7/8 head for a 1/2-inch bolt. And they're a lot thicker. And these lock washers were actually on with that raised side towards the head like that. So they give it a distinctive look. So I'm having a hard time locating any of these. Does anybody know there are big heavy lock washers like that produced anymore? I'm looking for the cosmetics of it, you know, because these are, you know, you can see them exposed on the outside of the tractor. It's not like it's hidden inside where you're never going to see it. You're going to see it. So I want to get something that looks correct. Because if you put the, hold on a sec here. Okay, I ran over and grabbed, so these are modern equivalents. So this is a modern 1/2-inch lock washer. You can see the ID is right, but the OD is considerably smaller than the old original ones. I don't know how much that'll pick up on camera, but they look completely different in real life. Considerably smaller. Okay, so you go to a 5/8 lock washer, which is obviously way too big on the ID, but the OD is right, or very close. So I'm not sure what to do. If I can't find anything similar to these, even if it doesn't have that little lip, the raised edge, even if it was just the right ID, OD and a little bit thicker, I'd be happy. So it looks right when it's all put together. The only other idea we've come up with so far, I've been searching all over town. I went to the Napa, and I went to the hardware store, and I went even up to the Gooseneck John Deere dealership here in Kenmare, and just to see if by chance if they had some goofy lock washers for the tractors there or whatever. And they didn't. All they got is modern hardware, but they tried. I give them a lot of credit. They tried. They looked around. The only idea we came with when I was brainstorming up there with them is the guy says, well, okay, so it's got the right OD there, so from the outside it would look right. But obviously if I tried to put that together like that, the lock washer is going to go offset, and that ain't right. You know, I wouldn't be happy with that. But he came up with a good idea. He says, well, take and make a little, either make a little bushing or bend up a little shim or something, you know, a little piece of wire, something to fill in that gap there. You know, a guy could turn up a little bushing or something, basically to hold that lock washer centered on the bolt while you're tightening it. As long as that bushing or whatever you put in there is thinner than the lock washer, so you're not binding on that bushing before you're binding on the lock washer. For when it's all together, you would never see that, and then from the outside it would look pretty correct. So that's one workaround that I might have to do if I can't locate these anywhere. So big question, all my viewers out there, all my viewers, the 6 people that actually watch this, if anybody knows, has a source for these old style of lock washers, please let me know. Here's some information on that lock washer, and a little bit better shot of a cleaned up one here a little bit. See that raised edge. Just in case anybody wanted a better view of what it looked like, and the specs on what size it is. Like I said, if anybody knows where I can find some of these, it'd be great. Thanks. There, I got the final drive all wire wheeled up here outside. I'm using the appropriate precautions for safety if anybody's worried. I got the full face shield, dust mask, earmuffs, gloves. I got a jacket on, long pants. So, because those, you know, those wire wheels, they're a little dangerous. Those little wire brushes, they do come off. They fling everywhere, so you wouldn't want to get one of those in your eyeballs. So, you do take appropriate safety precautions. But yeah, it's pretty well cleaned up on the outside. So I'll bring it back in the shop now and do some more cleaning on the inside. Whatever, I'm losing daylight fast here anyway, so. But we're making progress, and that's good. Another interesting difference I found while cleaning it up. So the casting number on the bottom of this final drive is a 0. Well, the casting number on this other final drive is either a 6 or a 9, depending on how you're looking at it. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because as far as I know, these are the same castings. They're not a left and a right casting specifically. I mean, they're the same. The plug is on the same side and everything. So I'm not really sure why they would have different casting numbers on them. If you have any thoughts on that, I'd like to hear. And then I did notice too that it's still dirty. I haven't cleaned it up yet, but the babbitt on the pinion drive end of this side is considerably better shape than the babbitt on this one. You know, there's some significant wear on this one. At this point, I'm not too concerned about it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to the actual axles and pinion drives and see how everything fits. But at this point, I don't plan on redoing babbitt or anything just because of that wear. It's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but there is a whole lot more on this side than there is on this side. And again, that seems a little bit strange why one side would be so much more worn than the other. I mean, you got the whole concept of, you know, if it was a plowing tractor where the one wheel was in the furrow all the time, you know, maybe it was worn more, but that doesn't really make sense though either, because this being the left side would be the land side of the plow, correct? So, I mean, you know, you would think if anything, the right-hand side would be worn more. Am I thinking about that right? And unless, of course, there's always the chance that this side final drive has been rebuilt at some point in the past. I kind of find that possibility unlikely, seeing as how little wear there seems to be on everything on this tractor. It's kind of unlikely that it would have been rebuilt. I mean, these tractors were basically obsolete when they were new, so most of them didn't really even get used a ton as it is. So I don't know, just little interesting differences I thought I'd point out while I'm doing this. Well, I've been cleaning it for a while here. It's getting there. Not quite done yet, but I'm going to call it a night for tonight. I'm hungry. Supper time. Come back in the morning. Get some more done. See you tomorrow.